Chris Mackowski of Emerging Civil War, and I am with Jim Woodrick exploring the Vicksburg campaign. And Jim, tell us where we're at and what we're looking at.
We are at Chickasaw Bayou battlefield, which is just north of Vicksburg, just a few minutes away. It's actually part of the same line of bluffs, the Walnut Hills, that form the bluffs at Vicksburg. What happened here took place in late December 1862. This is when Sherman's force came downriver in hopes of storming the bluffs at Vicksburg while Pemberton's army is in Grenada. There were about 6,000 Confederate troops here, however, when he landed, commanded by Stephen D. Lee. Sherman landed 3 divisions, another division north of here, but they marched inland, and it doesn't look like it in the summertime, but in the wintertime, this area is generally flooded.
Yeah, as we've been out here driving around, I mean, the fields are nice and flat because we're obviously in a floodplain, but it's beautiful out here.
It is.
It's so hospitable in December.
Not so hospitable in December, but again, this was timing for Sherman. So he has about 30,000 men. They march in. There are some places that they can deploy artillery and troops, but to get to the Walnut Hills, which is in that direction, they're going to have to cross some water courses and bayous, and there are only a few places they can do that. And when they do force their way across, they are exposed to Confederate fire, and the result is that it's a real disaster. There's something like in the nature of almost 1,800 casualties here by Sherman's men. Stephen D. Lee, as I said earlier, has about 6,000 men. They actually launch a counterattack once they've stopped Sherman's assault and capture, I think, about 300 Federals in the process. Sherman considers renewing the assault, but decides that it's best not to, and they go back to their transports. And the transports landed, by the way, on the Yazoo River, which is just a few miles west of where we are at this point. And what's interesting about this engagement in general is these were the troops that John McClernand had raised in Illinois and other Midwest areas and had brought down the river. He had not arrived yet, but they were in Memphis. And Grant and Sherman, with a wink, wink, nod, nod from Halleck, took McClernand's troops that he had raised and brought them on downriver. Of course, John McClernand is enraged by this. And when he arrives after the debacle here at Chickasaw Bayou, he takes command of these troops and takes them off on a wild goose chase to Arkansas Post, which Grant takes over, and he says that was basically a wild goose chase.
That's sort of what inspires Grant to finally come down here, is because McClernand is throwing his weight around. He outranks Sherman.
Yes, that's right.
Sherman chafes under that.
Right.
And so kind of an interesting just power play and dynamics, personalities here.
And of course, at the same time, you have Van Dorn's raid at Holly Springs that destroys one of Grant's supply depots during his Mississippi Central Railroad campaign, which is what allows Pemberton to let loose at Grenada and bring his army down to Vicksburg, because the focus of the campaign is moving from the overland route along the Mississippi Central Railroad through Oxford and Holly Springs and that area to a riverine expedition. So we're shifting focus here. All the players are going to be here along the river, along these bluffs.
Now, what do you think the major ramifications are of Chickasaw Bayou?
Well, I think this was Sherman's first independent command, and he failed miserably. Politically, I think it put a lot of pressure on Grant to do something and to do something positive. And of course, this is at the same time that Fredericksburg happened. So you have two major assaults that failed. This pales in comparison to the numbers, of course, of Fredericksburg.
And it's all on the eve of the Emancipation Proclamation.
Exactly.
So Lincoln needs something positive militarily.
He needs something positive. So I think one of the results of the Chickasaw Bayou failure is that Grant is going to make sure in the spring months to be doing something. So you see a series of expeditions, the Bayou expeditions,
the canal,
a lot of what might be termed as busy work by some to put on a good face while he's trying to figure out how to take Vicksburg.
I'm going to change perspective just for a second so we can look at this landscape. And as we pan over and see how flat it is. Oh, look, there's Jim again. So, Jim, we're off the beaten path out here. Tell me a little bit about, what is there to see and why or why not?
There's not much to see. It's all private property. As you can see, the fields are under cultivation, but just as it was during the time of the battle, during the winter months, a lot of this is underwater. So it's kind of difficult to have a park type atmosphere out here. But there are places that could be developed in the future. There have been attempts in the past to have an interpretive area for Chickasaw Bayou. I still have my hopes that that will happen someday, but it will probably not be out here in the hinterland, if you will, because this is just really remote. But at least if there's something closer to the Walnut Hills fortifications where Stephen D. Lee's troops were, there will be something to at least give visitors an idea of the terrain and what Sherman's men were facing.
Now, I'll back up just for a second because you said there's plenty of opportunity for development, but you're not talking houses and
apartments.
No,
I didn't mean that kind of development. I meant
battlefield
tourism. Yes. Don't want houses, no.
So we're going to keep exploring Vicksburg and the campaign here, but appreciate you bringing us out here. We're not that far from Vicksburg, actually.
Not at all, about 10 minutes south.
So you can have the chance to stop at the visitor center at the battlefield. They can tell you how to get out here, and really kind of a neat landscape to see.
It is. So. And it's, if you've never seen bayous and you can get a glimpse of the Yazoo River here, just watch for snakes.
Yeah, I've seen more.
Lots of big snakes out here.
I haven't seen any yet, knock on wood, but I've seen more herons than people out here today. Chris Mackowski, Jim Woodrick for Emerging Civil War. Thanks so much for being with us.